Chapter 292, Tanaka 3 Dance. The Yamato sector's Konoha Genetic Evolution College had made very thorough arrangements for this academic exchange. The private car brought Zutun and Luo Shifeng to their destination at 6 in the afternoon. They were invited to rest for 45 minutes before a small-scale welcoming banquet was held. There were not many people and not many dishes, but they were all very exquisite. It suited the style of the Yamato sector. Zutue remembered Luo Shifeng's instructions. Zutue represented the elites of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College, to a certain extent when he went to the Yamato sector for academic exchanges. Therefore, he had to pay attention to his image. Yes, especially the way he ate. Zutue felt that he was not full after the banquet ended. The academic exchange meeting was held in a multifunctional conference hall. First, Luo Shifeng and Zutue had to discuss the 9th and 8th newly discovered reaction-type genetic base points. There was also the discovery and reproduction process of the passive genetic ability chain of the reaction speed category. Zutue had to thank Luo Shifeng for this. Although old Luo had brought a girlfriend along the way and fed Zutue a belly full of sweetness, he was still very considerate. Luo Shifeng had already prepared the speech for the academic report for Zutue. Zutue was about to ask Huang to organize some useless things for him to read. The speech that Luo Shifeng had prepared was just right. There was standard, climax, and a hint of dryness, but it was still within the scope of the confidentiality regulations. Zutue spent more than half an hour reading more than 10 pages. When he finished, he received a warm and polite applause. Then, the venue was rearranged and entered the exchange segment. It was mainly to communicate with the professors of the neurology department of the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. The way they communicated was mainly through the questions the professors asked. Zutue and Luo Shifeng answered the questions. Luo Shifeng answered most of the problems. Zutue answered a small portion of the questions that he was asked to answer. He answered all of these questions within the scope of the confidentiality clause. After all, Zutue was the researcher and discoverer of the 9th and 8th reaction-type genetic base points and the passive genetic ability chain. The actual research process was there. Even if his speech was a little rough, he had real skills. Occasionally, Luo Shifeng would help with some extremely tricky questions. It had to be said that although he could get 400,000 a day for his lectures, it was not easy to engage in a verbal battle. 2 hours later, it was 10 p.m., and the academic discussion had entered its final phase, the free Q&A session. The previous question and answer exchanges were mainly conducted by the professors from the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. The students and even the media reporters who had been listening at the scene could ask questions during the Q&A session. This segment was very easy to deal with. The professionalism of the students was far inferior to that of the professors. They only asked simple questions. Perhaps it was because of their age, but many students asked Zutue questions. Of course, Zutue had an easy time dealing with them. Alright, it's about time. There are still 3 questions left. Everyone, hurry up. Luo Shifeng secretly signaled. The host immediately gave the final hint. As soon as the host finished speaking, a student from the Konoha Genetic Evolution College sitting in the front row stood up. He took the microphone and bowed slightly to Zutue to show his etiquette. Mr. Zutue, I heard that you are very powerful. You are a first-year student in the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College. You are the first-year dragon on the Longhu list. You are the most powerful student in the 2137th batch of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College, right? The student from the Konoha Genetic Evolution College who asked the question suddenly changed the direction of the question to his personal strength. I'm a first-year student of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College, but I might not be the most powerful student in the 2137th batch of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College. Student, I have to remind you that today's academic exchange is an academic exchange in the direction of reaction speed. Zutue first answered the question, then reminded him it was considered well-mannered. Luo Shifeng, who was sitting at the side, gave Zutue a thumbs up. However, the student who asked the question did not seem to hear him. Instead, he continued to introduce himself with the microphone. Mr. Zutui, my name is Tanaka Masaichi. I'm a freshman at the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. In the Wuxia sector's words, I am the strongest freshman. Today, I'm honored to meet the freshman's top student of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College. I would like to have an actual combat exchange with Mr. Zutui as a freshman at the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. Please allow me to do so. After he finished speaking, Tanaka Masaichi bowed slightly toward Zutui. It seemed polite, but there was a sense of aggressiveness. When he heard this, Luo Shifeng stood up before Zutui could answer. He immediately questioned the person in charge of the academic exchange at the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. Is this your arrangement? What do you mean? What do you want? The person in charge of the Konoha Genetic Evolution College, Professor Kayama, apologized repeatedly, saying that this was a student's voluntary action and that he would resolve it immediately. Tanaka Masaichi, who saw this scene, bowed slightly to Zutui before the assistant professor could speak. Mr. Zutui, this is my own decision. It has nothing to do with the professors. Please do me a favor and fight me. Of course, if you refuse, I won't force you. This is your freedom. How generous of him. However, it sounded so infuriating. For some reason, he had a feeling of if you don't dare, you can reject. How infuriating! Luo Shifeng's expression darkened. He was about to flare up when the person in charge of the Konoha Genetic Evolution College, Kayama, shouted, Tanaka, don't be impudent. Tanaka Masaichi nodded slightly, but he had no intention of backing down. His bright and sharp gaze was fixed on Zutui. He was waiting for Zutui's reply. Luo Shifeng became even angrier when he saw this. He was about to say something when Zutui stopped him with a gesture. Zutui expressed that he would handle it. After thinking about it, Luo Shifeng did not interfere. Zutui's performance at the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College was outstanding. Luo Shifeng had reason to believe that Zutui could handle this matter well. As Zutui stopped Luo Shifeng, all the gazes in the exchange venue were focused on Zutui. The professors and the students from the Konoha Genetic Evolution College were all looking at Zutui. They wanted to see how the first-year dragon of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College would handle this matter. In essence, Tanaka Masaki's challenge today was very tricky. Why was he being tricky? Because their statuses were not the same. Today, Tanaka Masaichi was here to listen to academic reports as a student. On the other hand, Zutui had been invited to do an academic report. Moreover, the Konoha Genetic Evolution College had given him the treatment of a professor. A student challenging a professor-level existence. If he accepted the challenge, he would lose his dignity. If he refused to fight, it could be understood as being afraid of battle, which would be embarrassing. That was why he said that the matter that Tanaka Masaichi was handling was very tricky and not easy to deal with. Zutui cleared his throat slightly the moment everyone looked over. He had already thought this through. It was impossible to accept the challenge. However, it was also impossible for him to refuse to fight and lose the reputation of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College. Mr. Tanaka, are you going to challenge me in the name of the top freshman of the Konoha Genetic Evolution College? Zutui suddenly asked. Tanaka Masaichi was delighted when he heard that. He thought that Zutui was going to accept the challenge, so he quickly nodded. Mr. Zutui, please enlighten me. Mr. Tanaka, I have a question that I would like you to answer, Zutui replied. Tanaka was stunned. He quickly bowed and nodded. Please ask. Mr. Tanaka, as a genetic newcomer and a cultivator, do you have to be prepared to deal with any accidents or even battles at all times? Zutui asked. Yes. Tanaka thought for a moment and nodded slightly, his expression slightly solemn. Then it looks like you're ready. The moment he finished speaking, Zutui focused his gaze and his mind power fluctuated violently. A strengthened version of the mental whip lashed fiercely at Tanaka Masaichi. As the invisible mental whip lashed down, Tanaka Masaki's body swayed and he fell to the ground. In an instant, there was an uproar. 12 meters! Zutui was at least 12 meters away from Tanaka Masaichi. He actually launched a mental attack from such a distance. The professors on the stage looked at Zutui in shock. However, Tanaka Masaichi was also a student of the mystery branch at the Konoha Genetic Evolution College. His resistance to mental attacks was still very strong. He fell to the ground and struggled to get up. Zutu's gaze turned cold, his mind power fluctuated again. He lashed out his mental whip again. This time, Tanaka Masaichi felt the world spin around him, and he crawled to the ground. Many of the students and teachers in the audience were furious. They were about to flare up when Zutu's voice rang out at the same time. Today, I was invited by the head of the neurology department of the Konoha Genetic Evolution College, Professor Kayama, for an academic exchange. This meant that in today's academic exchange, my status is on par with Professor Kayama. And you, Tanaka Masaichi, are just an ordinary freshman. How dare you offend me on such an occasion? Where are your manners? Have you thrown them in Akihabara? I'm whipping you on behalf of Professor Kayama. The moment Zutu said that, the face of the person in charge, Professor Kayama, had already turned red. He immediately bowed to Zutun until the end. At this moment, Tanaka Masaichi struggled to get up again, not knowing what to do. Zutu focused his gaze and once again lashed out with his mental whip without hesitation. Bang! Tanaka Masaki, who had just propped himself up, was once again struck to the ground by Zutu's mental whip. This time, Tanaka Masaki's eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and other orifices were all bleeding. He fainted on the spot. Zutui had no intention of letting Tanaka Masaichi off the hook. Hey Emph, you don't know your manners. You don't know your place. You don't know your own strengths. Student Tanaka Masaichi, you can change your name to Tanaka 3 Dunce next time. After saying that, Zutui did not care about the reactions of the others. He pulled Luo Shifeng toward the lounge. As the person in charge, Professor Kayama's face was still red as he bowed.